I'm going to tell you about something that happened on May 28, 2018, at 10:15 in the evening, Central European Time, because what it taught me about discipline and passion changed my life, and it can change yours too. At that moment, I was upside down on a pole in a nightclub. Now, if you'd asked me right then whether I wanted to start answering profound questions about my life, I would have politely declined. I was busy. But for some reason, the questions kept bubbling up or down. What are you doing on this pole? What are you doing in this club, at this bachelorette party at all? And those were good questions, because I shouldn't have been on that pole, in that club, or even that country. I was days away from a career-defining law exam, and any sane person would have been at home studying like their future depended on it, because mine did. And on top of that, I was in the middle of a devastating divorce, bringing to an end the only significant relationship I'd ever had. But I had convinced myself that being at that bachelorette party really was more important. I felt sure that if I inconvenienced my friend with the truth that I was struggling, drowning, I'd lose her friendship and add yet another disaster to the growing list. So I went, and I buried the truth under the guise of being a good friend. My career was dangling, my marriage had shattered, and yet there I was, performing a move that somehow mirrored my inner chaos. Perhaps it was a rush of blood to the head being upside down, but I suddenly saw through my facade. I saw through a pattern of thinking that had gone unchallenged for decades, only to please others and to feel safe. It was like realizing you've been following your GPS for miles, only to find you're headed in the wrong direction on a one-way street. The ensuing sense of doom was humbling. It introduced me to my more deeper, repressed parts of myself. In that moment, I had been given another chance. As Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung said, until you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I don't know if Jung pole danced before he wrote that, but it really spoke to me. Just for a moment, I realized that the pole made my unconscious conscious. It showed me that if I was going to live a truly passionate life, I had to make space for that passion to exist. It was going to take discipline to shed parts of myself off to grow in a new direction. Discipline in its deepest sense. The word comes from the Latin disciplus, to learn. I had to consciously unlearn the script I had spent a lifetime constantly rehearsing. To unlearn perfectionism, to unlearn self-neglect, to unlearn powerlessness. To confront the fact that many of my problems that I thought were external were in fact internal. In that difficult, tricky, and painful journey, there were 3 tools that I came to rely on. Tools I used to unlearn my patterns, to make my unconscious conscious. Tool number 1, understand you're normal. Recognize that you're normal, your thoughts, feelings, and relationships is never just normal. It is shaped by your past. Understanding this is the first step towards change. For me, it meant confronting a toxic discipline rooted deeply in my upbringing. Growing up, my normal was a household with unpredictable behavior. There was love, sure, but it was like a mystery flavor. Never quite knew what you were going to get. I knew speaking the truth about an abusive bully for a sibling led to chaos. Without realizing it, I had internalized that dynamic. Decided neglect and unpredictability was what love looked like, and unconsciously sought it out in all my relationships. It was only at that bachelorette party that I started to see that what felt natural and familiar was in fact a toxic pattern. I checked my intentions. Why did I feel so compelled to go to that party? Why did the fantasy of my friend abandoning me feel so much worse than the reality of failing exams and a divorce? Our intentions have weight. They powerfully guide our choices and actions, especially the unconscious ones. My desire to be an orbiting moon around others was the foundation for my misaligned choices and actions. It took courage to confront my negative traits and the underlying motivations behind them, to shift the inner dialogue to what I wanted to see in my new normal. This disciplined shift in perspective gives you what you never had before: the power to hold yourself accountable for your intentions and related behaviors. It helps you realize that you're not simply a product of your past. You have a choice over what your normal inner dialogue can be. Tool number 2, get selective with your thoughts. Actually decide mid-thought that it might be a shitty thought and think about something else. Harry Potter has his Patronus protective charm, and my superpower, it's my daily gratitude and meditation practice, which empowers me to catch a thought mid-air and flip it around. How much airtime are you giving to thoughts which don't serve you? Negative thoughts are like those dementors from Harry Potter, those cloaked figures that drain every bit of joy from you. The more we indulge these thoughts, the more we attune to them. And every moment we spend on them is a moment that cannot be spent on something we're passionate about. Breaking that cycle starts by caring about how those thoughts make you feel, caring about the time it wastes and the opportunities it steals. The discipline is to start redirecting your focus deliberately, regardless of how low you feel. You know, it blew my mind when I realized I could do that. At first, it feels weird. If you've spent a life at the mercy of those thoughts, it's like being on a ship in a storm. But the mind isn't magic, it's a muscle. The more you train it to focus on the positive, the stronger it gets. And when you take control of your thoughts, you start to take control of your life. Tool number 3, slow things down. There's power in the pause. In the battle between the conscious and unconscious thoughts, the unconscious has a huge advantage. It's fast, especially when we're under stress, which is all the time when you're living a life you don't want. When we feel pressure, our amygdala, the survival part of our brain, takes over, shutting down the nuanced thought that allows us to engage meaningfully with the world. By the time your conscious mind has woken up, your unconscious is already in the office making decisions. Decisions based on those fears and old stories that you've told yourself, and everything to do with keeping you safe and static. To level the playing field, we have to give our conscious mind time to catch up. That's where discipline comes in. When I catch myself in a spiral of fear or rejection because of some chance meeting, I pause. I observe the thought. I let it sit. And in that pause, I create space for a new belief. Do I really deserve to feel awful for this mistake? Is this really a disaster? Those tiny moments, those pauses, are where new positive thoughts, beliefs, and actions are born, and where passion can take root. As I rewrote the narrative using the tools I have discussed, I experienced massive shifts in my personal and professional growth. I chose to believe that I could take legal exams while working full-time, and I did. I chose to believe that I could pursue a Master's of Law in Securities and Financial Regulation, again while working full-time. And I began to thrive in a field I once feared I'd fail. I went from not knowing where to live or how to live alone during a lockdown to buying my first home and actually enjoying my own company. I created space to welcome communities that shared my interests and hobbies. Today, I have a life full of soul-nourishing relationships, those supportive, meaningful, heart-centered connections I'd always dreamt of, and a career that reflects my passion. I didn't change my life, my normal, my thoughts, feelings, and relationships by accident. It was deliberate. It took small, consistent steps, each one guided by the tools I've shared. Now, it's your turn. Reflect on your unconscious motivations and patterns, yes, but don't stop there. Whether it's holding yourself accountable by getting clarity on your intentions, questioning the thoughts you entertain, caring about how those thoughts make you feel, pausing before reacting, because there's no need to be held back by unconscious chains. No matter how old you are, the way you feel today isn't a life sentence, and waiting for change isn't enough. Hold your unconscious thoughts and feelings up to the light. If you don't like what you see, change it. Use discipline to unlearn the old so you can make room for the new. Because when you deliberately create space, passion will fill it. Thank you.